Welcome to another deep dive. We're going to be tackling something pretty profound today, the nature of consciousness and intelligence. And we've got a stack of fascinating sources to guide our deep dive. We've got excerpts from cognitive psychology textbooks, some cutting-edge research papers, and even some philosophical arguments to keep things interesting.
Oh, it's going to be a thought-provoking journey for sure. We're not just defining terms here. We're going to dig into how we experience the world, how we think, and maybe even what it means to be intelligent.
Exactly. It's one thing to read a definition of consciousness in a textbook, but it's another to really try to grasp what it means to have subjective experiences. Like right now, you're looking at your phone or computer screen. But how does your brain turn those pixels into the feeling of understanding these words?
That's a great example to start with. In his book, Foundations of Cognitive Psychology, Levitin talks about this idea of intentionality, the way our thoughts are always about something.
So my thought about this deep dive is directed at the deep dive itself. But the thought itself isn't a physical thing, even though the deep dive is made up of sound waves and digital files.
That's right, and this leads us to the mind-body problem, one of the biggest mysteries in philosophy and science. How do physical events in the brain, like neurons firing, create these intangible experiences we call thoughts and feelings? Levitin mentions supervenience, this idea that any change in consciousness must be tied to a corresponding change in the brain. But how those changes are linked, that's still a puzzle.
It's like we can see the hardware of the brain, but we don't fully understand the software that's running on it. And it gets even trickier when we start thinking about other people's experiences. How can we ever know if anyone else experiences the world the same way we do?
This is where the problem of other minds comes in, a philosophical conundrum that has vexed thinkers for centuries. One way to explore this is through thought experiments, like the idea of an inverted spectrum.
Okay, I've heard of that one. That's where your perception of colors is completely flipped from mine. So you might see the sky as red, while I see it as blue, but we both still call it blue because that's what we were taught.
Precisely, and because we both use the same word, we'd never know our experiences were different. This raises a question for you to ponder. Have you ever considered that others might be experiencing the world in a radically different way, even though they use the same words and behave similarly?
Whoa, that's a real head trip.
Yeah.
And it makes you question how much of what we perceive is actually out there in the world versus constructed by our own minds.
This is where Daniel Dennett's thought experiment, Where Am I?, really blows the lid off things. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to have your brain separated from your body but still able to control it remotely?
Okay, that sounds like some serious sci-fi stuff.
It is. But Dennett actually imagined the scenario happening to him.
Yeah.
His brain is removed and can communicate with his body through a wireless link. So if his brain is in a lab and his body is out exploring the world, where is the real Dennett?
That's a mind-bending question. It challenges our whole notion of what it means to be a self. Is it all in the brain, or does the body play a role, too?
Exactly. And Dennett's story takes an even wilder turn. There's a switch that allows him to flip between controlling his brain and controlling his body. But here's the kicker. He can't tell which position the switch is in. He's flipping back and forth between these two perspectives without knowing which one he's experiencing at any given moment.
Wait, so he might be thinking he's controlling his body, but actually be back in the lab with his brain. That's both hilarious and terrifying. What does this kind of thought experiment tell us about consciousness and the self?
Well, it suggests that our sense of self might be more fluid and less tied to our physical bodies than we traditionally think. It also raises questions about what it means to be located somewhere. If your brain is controlling your body from a distance, where are you really located?
This is where things start to feel really philosophical, but in a good way. It's like our intuitive notions of self and location break down when we start pushing the boundaries of what's possible. And speaking of pushing boundaries, let's shift gears and talk about another huge question. Can machines think?
Ah, the age-old question of artificial intelligence. One of the most influential ways of thinking about this is through the Turing test developed by Alan Turing.
I've heard of the Turing test, but I'm not sure I fully understand it. Is it like a quiz show for robots?
Not quite. It's more like a test of a machine's ability to mimic human conversation. The idea is that if a machine can converse with a human judge in a way that's indistinguishable from another human, then we should consider it intelligent.
So it's not about factual knowledge or processing power, but about the ability to communicate in a way that feels natural and human-like.
Exactly. And Turing anticipated many of the objections to his test. People argued that machines can't truly think or understand, but his response was, if a machine acts intelligent, why deny it that label?
So it's about shifting the focus from what's going on inside the machine to how it behaves and interacts with the world.
Precisely. He also acknowledged that having a physical body might be important for true intelligence, but that's a separate question. The Turing test focuses specifically on a machine's ability to communicate and think in a way that's indistinguishable from a human.
This gets at the heart of what we've been talking about, the nature of intelligence itself. If we can't even define what it means for a human to be intelligent, how can we judge the intelligence of a machine?
That's a great point. And there are different models for understanding intelligence, each with its own strengths and limitations. One model that offers a different perspective is parallel distributed processing, or PDP.
Okay, I have to admit, PDP sounds pretty intimidating.
Yeah.
What's the basic idea behind it?
It moves away from the traditional view of the brain as a computer processing information step by step. Instead, it sees the brain as a vast network of interconnected units, kind of like simplified neurons, all working together in parallel.
So instead of having specific areas for specific functions, it's more about the connections and patterns of activity across the whole network.
Exactly. And here's where it gets really interesting. In PDP models, memories aren't stored in specific locations like files on a computer. Instead, they're stored in the connections between the units.
So it's like the memory of your first bike ride isn't located in a single bike ride neuron, but spread across the entire network of connections in your brain.
That's a great way to visualize it. And this distributed nature of memory has implications for how we understand learning recall and even things like memory distortion.
This is making me think about how we categorize things.
Hmm.
If our brains are these complex networks, how do we decide what belongs in which category? Like what makes a bird, and how do we differentiate it from, say, a bat?
That's a perfect segue to Eleanor Roche's research on prototypes. She found that we don't just categorize things based on strict definitions. We actually have mental prototypes, the most typical example of a category that help us make sense of the world.
So if I say bird, you're more likely to picture a robin or a sparrow than, say, a penguin or an ostrich.
Exactly. Even though all of those are technically birds, the robin is closer to our prototype of what a bird should look and act like.
This makes me think about the listener. What's your prototype for a chair or a house? Do you think everyone's mental image is exactly the same?
That's a great question. It highlights how our individual experiences shape our understanding of the world, even down to the way we categorize basic objects.
And this individuality extends to memory as well,
Right.
right? I mean, we all know that memories aren't perfect recordings of the past. They're more like reconstructions that can be influenced by our current knowledge beliefs and even the way we ask questions about the past.
You're spot on. The constructionist view of memory challenges this idea that our brains are like video recorders, perfectly preserving every detail. Instead, memories are malleable and can be altered by all sorts of factors.
So it's like our brains are constantly trying to create a coherent narrative, even if it means filling in the gaps or tweaking the details a bit.
That's a great way to put it. And this can have some surprising consequences. Research has shown that even something as simple as the way a question is worded can actually change what someone remembers about an event.
That's kind of scary, isn't it? It makes you wonder how reliable our memories really are.
It certainly does, and it has implications for everything from eyewitness testimony to personal relationships. It's a reminder that memory is a much more complex and fluid process than we often give it credit for.
This is all making my head spin a little, but in a good way. I feel like we've barely scratched the surface of these topics, and I'm already eager to dive deeper.
We've only just begun.
Yeah.
And we've got even more mind-bending concepts and fascinating research to unpack in part 2. So stay tuned. It certainly is a fascinating area to explore. Do you remember what we discussed about the constructionist view of memory?
Absolutely. It's the idea that memories aren't perfect recordings of the past, but rather they're these reconstructions that can be influenced by a bunch of different factors like our current knowledge, our beliefs, even the way questions are asked.
Precisely. And that susceptibility to influence. It makes you think about, the reliability of eyewitness accounts and even challenges our understanding of truth when it comes to memory. It's a rabbit hole in itself.
Oh, it really is. But before we get too lost in that rabbit hole,
Mm-hmm.
let's circle back to the question of artificial intelligence. We've delved into the human side of things. But can machines truly think? Is it even possible to create an AI that's like on par with our own intelligence?
See, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? We talked about the Turing test earlier, which focuses on a machine's ability to mimic human conversation. But even if a machine can pass the Turing test, does that automatically mean it's truly thinking in the way we do? I mean, it's a point of contention, to say the least.
Yeah, I see what you mean. There's a certain intuition that human consciousness has something unique, that machines, even incredibly sophisticated ones, might not be able to replicate.
That's a very astute observation, and it ties into what some of the sources suggest about the nature of human intelligence and how it might be fundamentally different from machine processing. For instance, Dennett, in his mind-boggling "Where am I?" scenario, highlights the importance of embodiment, our connection to the physical world through our bodies.
Right. He describes this strange sense of dislocation when his brain is separated from his body. It's as if our physical presence in the world grounds our consciousness in a way that's like difficult to even grasp.
Exactly, and that embodied experience is something that's difficult, perhaps even impossible to replicate in a machine, even if we could create a machine with a body. Would it have the same subjective experience of the world? Would it feel things in the same way we do? It raises a whole new set of questions.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if there's something special about being a biological organism that's essential for consciousness. Maybe it's not just about information processing, but about the way our brains interact with our bodies and the environment, like over time, through evolution.
That's a key point. It makes you think back to the PDP model we talked about earlier, with its emphasis on interconnected networks and emergent properties. These models show how complex behavior can arise from the interaction of many simple units. Perhaps consciousness itself emerges in a similar way, from the complex interplay of our brains, our bodies, and the environment over like millions of years.
So we've got these intricate networks, this embodiment, and maybe even something special about being biological. It's a lot to wrap your head around. It seems like we haven't quite cracked the code of consciousness yet.
We haven't reached a definitive conclusion, that's for sure. But the more we learn about the brain and how it operates, the closer we get to understanding these profound questions. And these sources we're exploring provide some incredible tools and frameworks for thinking about them.
Speaking of tools, let's revisit prototypes for a moment. They're not just a way to understand categorization, they also highlight the incredible flexibility and adaptability of human intelligence, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely, that's a very important point. Raj's research showed that our prototypes are not fixed. They can change based on context and experience. For example, your prototype for bird might be different if you grew up in a tropical rainforest versus an urban city center.
So our brains are constantly updating and refining our understanding of the world based on new information. It's not a static system, it's a dynamic process that evolves throughout our lives.
Precisely. And this adaptability is one of the hallmarks of human intelligence. It allows us to learn new things, solve problems in creative ways, and even create works of art that express our unique perspectives.
But doesn't this adaptability also make our memories more susceptible to distortion? We were talking about how misleading information can actually alter our recollections. It's as if our desire for a coherent narrative sometimes overrides the actual details of an event.
That's true. It's a double-edged sword, so to speak. Memory can be unreliable at times, but it also allows us to learn from our mistakes, reevaluate past experiences with new insights, and even imagine future possibilities that shape our decisions. Machines can't do that with the same nuance and flexibility.
That's a really interesting point. Machines might be great at following rules and processing information quickly, but they often struggle with the kind of flexible, context-dependent thinking that humans excel at.
It reminds me of that saying, computers are good at following instructions, but not at reading your mind.
That's a perfect way to put it. This difference between human and artificial intelligence pops up in so many areas, from language understanding to problem solving, and even in something as seemingly simple as recognizing objects.
Absolutely. For example, we can easily recognize a cat, even if it's partially hidden or in a weird position. But for a machine, that can be incredibly challenging.
It highlights how we don't just passively process information. We actively construct our understanding of the world based on our experiences, our expectations, and our goals.
Yeah.
We see what we expect to see what's relevant to us at that moment. It's like our brains are constantly making predictions and testing them against the sensory data coming in.
That's a very insightful way to think about perception. It underscores the incredible complexity of the human brain and how it's wired for meaning-making. We're not just data processors, we're storytellers weaving narratives from the information we encounter.
It's mind-blowing to think about all the activity happening beneath the surface of our awareness. How much of our experience is shaped by these unconscious processes? It's a question I find myself pondering often.
And it's a question that cognitive science is actively exploring. Research on implicit bias, for example, has shown how unconscious beliefs and attitudes can influence our behavior even when we're not aware of them.
So even though we like to think of ourselves as rational actors, a lot of our thoughts and actions are guided by these hidden forces lurking beneath our conscious awareness. It's a bit unsettling when you think about it.
It is a humbling realization. It suggests we don't always have as much control over our minds as we like to believe. It's as if there's a whole other world operating below the surface of our conscious thoughts, shaping our perceptions, our memories, and even the decisions we make.
It makes you question the whole notion of free will, but that's a deep dive for another day, perhaps.
Indeed. It's a conversation that naturally connects to many of the themes we've been exploring today, from the mind-body problem to the nature of consciousness and the limitations of artificial intelligence.
It seems the more we learn about the brain and its intricate workings, the more questions we uncover. It's a journey of endless discovery, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. That's the beauty of science, isn't it? It's a continuous process of refining our understanding, challenging assumptions, and pushing the boundaries of knowledge. And in the field of cognitive science, the possibilities for exploration are truly limitless.
Speaking of exploration, we've talked a lot about how humans make sense of the world through language and visual perception. But what about music? It's often called a universal language, and it seems to tap into something deep within us. How do our brains process music, and what can it tell us about human cognition?
That's a fascinating question. It leads us to a realm where cognitive psychology, neuroscience, and even musicology intersect.
A truly interdisciplinary field, then.
Exactly. Researchers are uncovering some incredible insights into how our brains process music and how those processes relate to other cognitive abilities like language and memory.
So what have they discovered so far? It's a topic I'm really curious about.
Well, one key finding is that processing music involves a distributed network of brain areas, not just a single music center. These areas include those involved in auditory perception, motor control, emotion, and even memory. It's like a whole brain experience, really.
That makes sense. It's similar to what we discussed about how we process language or other complex information. It's not localized to one specific area,
Yeah.
but rather involves a coordinated effort across different brain regions.
Precisely. And one of the most fascinating aspects of music is its deep connection to our emotions. We've all experienced how music can evoke powerful feelings, whether it's joy, sadness, nostalgia, or even a sense of awe.
It's remarkable how a sequence of sounds can have such a profound impact on our emotional state. What's happening in the brain when we have these emotional responses to music?
Research suggests that music can activate the limbic system, which is involved in processing emotions. It can also trigger the release of dopamine, a neurotransmitter associated with pleasure and reward. This could explain why music feels so good to us.
So in a way, music is tapping into some ancient circuitry in our brains that evolved to respond to things essential for our survival and well-being.
That's a compelling perspective. It makes you wonder if music played a role in human evolution, perhaps by strengthening social bonds or helping us regulate emotions.
It's a fascinating idea. Music might be more than just entertainment. It could be a fundamental aspect of our social and emotional development as a species.
Exactly. Looking at it from an evolutionary standpoint helps us understand why music is so universal and why it holds such power over us. It's not just a cultural invention, it's something deeply rooted in our biology, a language that speaks to us on a primal level.
That's incredible. So we've got this intricate network of brain regions, a strong link to emotions, and maybe even an evolutionary basis. But how do our brains actually learn and remember musical patterns? How do we go from hearing a melody for the first time to being able to hum it or play it ourselves?
That's where things get even more intriguing. Research suggests that learning music involves both implicit and explicit processes, much like language acquisition.
So we're not just consciously memorizing notes and rhythms. We're also unconsciously absorbing the underlying patterns and structures of music. We're picking up on the grammar of music, so to speak.
Exactly. And this implicit learning is thought to be critical for developing musical expertise. It allows musicians to effortlessly perform complex pieces without having to consciously think about every single note. Their brains have internalized the patterns and can anticipate what comes next.
It's as if they're speaking a second language, but with music instead of words. And this process of learning music might even have implications for other cognitive abilities, right? I've heard that musical training can benefit other areas of the brain.
That's right. Some research suggests that music training can enhance cognitive skills like language processing, working memory, and even attention. It's as if learning music helps to strengthen these cognitive muscles, making them more efficient and adaptable.
That's incredible. So learning music might not just be about music itself. It might be a way to boost our overall cognitive fitness and mental agility.
That's a promising area of research. It highlights the incredible plasticity of the human brain and how our experiences, even those involving something as enjoyable as music, can shape and mold our cognitive abilities.
It's amazing how adaptable our brains truly are. But we've also talked about the downside of that adaptability, how it can make our memories prone to distortion. If we bring this back to music, does that mean our memories for songs and melodies might not be as accurate as we think?
That's a great question. And it turns out that music memory is just as susceptible to distortion and reconstruction as other forms of memory.
So even though a song might feel incredibly familiar, our memory for the specific notes and lyrics might be surprisingly fuzzy.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Our brains are always trying to make sense of the music we hear, just like they do with other types of information. We're not simply recording the sounds passively, we're actively constructing our understanding of the music based on our expectations, our prior knowledge, and even our emotional state at the moment.
So it's not just about what we hear, but about how we interpret and imbue meaning into those sounds. Our personal experiences and emotional responses color our memories of music.
Exactly. And this process of interpretation and meaning making can lead to those intriguing little distortions in our memories. A song might evoke a powerful memory, but the details of the song itself might be a bit jumbled in our minds.
It's amazing to think about all the factors that shape our musical memories. It makes you wonder if there are individual differences in how people remember music, just like there are with other types of memories. Are some people just better at remembering songs than others?
That's a great point, and research suggests that there are indeed individual differences in music memory. Some people seem to have a natural knack for recalling melodies and lyrics, while others struggle to remember even songs they've heard countless times.
So maybe there are musical mnemonists out there, just like there are people with exceptional memories for other types of information. That would be fascinating to explore.
Absolutely. It would be incredibly insightful to understand the cognitive and neural mechanisms that underlie these individual differences in music memory.
The study of music cognition is a vast and ever-evolving field with endless avenues for exploration and discovery. It's incredible how much we can learn about ourselves through something as seemingly simple as music.
It certainly is. It has the potential to shed light not just on how we process music, but also on the broader nature of human cognition itself. It's a reminder that the human mind is a marvel of complexity and adaptability.
Speaking of complexities, let's shift our focus to another intriguing aspect of human intelligence, individual differences. We've talked about different types of intelligence, but are some people simply smarter than others? It's a question that's been debated for ages.
It's a question that's both fascinating and sensitive. What makes it so complex is that there's no single definition of smart. Our sources emphasize that intelligence is multifaceted, meaning there are many different types of intelligence, and people can excel in some areas while struggling in others.
So it's not just about having a high IQ, but about having a unique profile of strengths and weaknesses across different cognitive domains.
Exactly. This idea is reflected in theories of multiple intelligences, like Howard Gardner's model, which we briefly touched on earlier. He proposed at least 8 distinct types of intelligence, including linguistic, logical, mathematical, musical, spatial, bodily, kinesthetic, interpersonal, and naturalistic intelligence.
So someone could be a brilliant musician, but have difficulty with math, while another person might excel in athletics but find language challenging. It's about recognizing the diverse ways in which intelligence manifests itself.
Precisely. This perspective challenges the traditional view of intelligence as a single general ability that can be captured by an IQ test. It's a much more nuanced and holistic way of understanding human cognitive abilities.
It's a view that celebrates the diversity of human talents and recognizes that people have different cognitive strengths. But this doesn't mean there aren't individual differences in overall cognitive ability. Remarkably, some people do seem to grasp concepts more quickly or solve problems more efficiently.
That's true, and research suggests there is a general cognitive factor, often referred to as G, that contributes to performance across a wide range of cognitive tasks.
So G is like a measure of overall cognitive processing power.
You could think of it that way, but it's crucial to remember that G is just one piece of the puzzle. It doesn't encompass the full complexity of human intelligence, which includes creativity, emotional intelligence, practical skills, and so much more.
Right. Having a high G might predict academic success, but it doesn't guarantee success in life. There are so many other factors that contribute to a fulfilling and meaningful life. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. Those other factors, things like perseverance, resilience, social skills, empathy, and the ability to adapt to change, are often just as crucial as cognitive ability when it comes to navigating the complexities of life.
So it's a complex interplay of nature and nurture genes and environment that shapes our individual cognitive profiles.
Precisely. And one of the ongoing debates in intelligence research is the relative contribution of genetics and environment to these individual differences in cognitive ability.
It's the classic nature versus nurture debate. What do the sources we've been looking at say about this?
They acknowledge that both genetics and environment play significant roles, but the exact contributions of each are still being actively debated and researched. It's not a simple either-or scenario.
It seems like there's still a lot to learn in this area. But even without all the answers, exploring different perspectives on intelligence and how these perspectives have evolved over time is incredibly fascinating.
Absolutely. And this exploration can help us develop a more nuanced and informed understanding of human potential and diversity.
Speaking of diversity, another area where individual differences shine through is decision-making. We face countless choices every day, both big and small. But do we always make those choices rationally? Or are there hidden forces at play?
That's an excellent question. Research in cognitive psychology suggests that our decision-making processes are often swayed by biases and heuristics, which can lead to choices that are less than rational, even illogical at times.
So even when we think we're being completely logical, our decisions might be nudged in one direction or another by these mental shortcuts and cognitive biases that operate beneath our conscious awareness.
Exactly. And these biases can be incredibly subtle and difficult to detect, making them all the more potent. It's like our brains are playing tricks on us, steering us away from what might objectively be the best choice.
It's a bit unnerving when you think about it. But understanding these biases can help us make better decisions right.
Absolutely. Being aware of these biases and how they operate can be incredibly valuable for making sound decisions in all aspects of our lives, from personal finance to relationships to even voting in elections.
So let's delve into some of these biases and heuristics. What are some of the most common ones that trip us up when making decisions?
One of the most well-known is confirmation bias, which is our tendency to seek out information that confirms our existing beliefs while downplaying or ignoring information that challenges them.
So we're essentially filtering the information we encounter to fit our preconceived notions, creating echo chambers for our own opinions.
That's a great way to put it. Confirmation bias can be especially problematic when making important decisions because it can lead us to choose options that aren't in our best interests simply because they align with what we already believe.
It's like we're more interested in being right than in finding the truth. So how can we overcome this bias and make more objective, well-informed decisions?
One key strategy is to actively seek out diverse perspectives and be open to information that challenges our cherished beliefs.
So it's about stepping outside our comfort zones and being willing to consider viewpoints that differ from our own, even if they make us feel a bit uncomfortable.
Exactly. It's also important to be aware of our own biases and try to minimize their influence. It's like we need to become our own cognitive detectives, constantly scrutinizing our thoughts and decisions for signs of bias creeping in.
Confirmation bias is definitely something I need to watch out for. What are some other biases we should be aware of?
Another prevalent one is availability bias, which is the tendency to overestimate the likelihood of events that are easily recalled or that have received a lot of media attention.
So if something is vivid or memorable, we tend to think it's more common than it actually is, even if the statistics say otherwise.
Exactly. For example, people are often more afraid of flying than driving, even though statistically driving is far more dangerous. This is because plane crashes are highly publicized and therefore more easily recalled, making them seem more common than they are.
It's like our brains are wired to pay more attention to dramatic or emotionally charged events, even if they are not representative of the actual risks involved.
That's a great observation. And this availability bias can lead us to make irrational decisions based on fear or anxiety, rather than on a realistic assessment of the situation.
So it's essential to be mindful of this bias and try to base our decisions on facts and evidence rather than on our gut feelings or whatever happens to pop into our minds first.
Absolutely. Another common bias that can skew our decisions is anchoring bias, which is the tendency to rely too heavily on the first piece of information we encounter, even if it's irrelevant or misleading.
So we get fixated on that initial piece of information, and it becomes an anchor that drags down our subsequent judgments, even if it shouldn't.
Precisely. Imagine you're negotiating a salary, and the first number mentioned either by you or the employer sets the stage for the entire negotiation. Even if that number is completely arbitrary, it can become an anchor that influences your perception of what a fair offer is.
It's remarkable how these seemingly subtle cognitive biases can exert such a powerful influence on our decisions. It makes you realize how much is happening beneath the surface of our awareness.
It really does. And these are just a few examples of the many biases and heuristics that can color our thinking. Becoming aware of these biases and understanding how they operate is the first step toward making more rational and informed choices.
It's like we need to train our brains to be more critical thinkers, constantly questioning our assumptions and looking for potential sources of bias in our own thinking. It's a challenging but rewarding endeavor.
You've hit the nail on the head. This metacognitive awareness, being aware of our own thinking processes, is a powerful tool for improving our decision making and navigating the complexities of the world.
It's empowering to realize that we can actively shape our own thinking and decision-making processes. We're not just at the mercy of these unconscious biases, we have the power to recognize and mitigate their influence.
That's right. And this cognitive empowerment is key to living a more fulfilling and successful life. It allows us to make choices that are truly in our best interests, rather than being swayed by hidden forces we don't even understand.
This has been incredibly enlightening. Speaking of success, we've talked about different types of intelligence and how individual differences can impact our cognitive abilities. But what about expertise? What sets apart an expert in a particular field from a novice, and are there differences in their brains?
That's a fascinating question that takes us into the realm of expertise research. This field has provided incredible insights into the nature of expertise and the remarkable plasticity of the human brain.
So what have researchers discovered about the brains of experts? Is it simply a matter of being born with the gift, or is there more to it?
One of the key findings is that expertise isn't simply about innate talent or intelligence. It's the culmination of years of deliberate, practice-focused effort and continuous feedback. It's about putting in the hours, honing your skills, and striving for constant improvement.
So it's not just about having a natural aptitude, it's about transforming that aptitude into mastery through dedicated practice and a relentless pursuit of excellence.
Exactly. And this process of deliberate practice leads to structural and functional changes in the brain, especially in the areas associated with the specific domain of expertise.
So an expert chess player's brain might show differences in the areas involved in spatial reasoning and strategic planning, while a concert pianist's brain might have enhanced connectivity in the regions responsible for motor control and auditory processing. It's like their brains have been sculpted by their practice.
Precisely. These brain changes reflect the remarkable adaptability of the human brain and its ability to rewire itself in response to experience.
It's amazing how our brains can physically reshape themselves to become more efficient and effective at the tasks we repeatedly engage in. It's like we're literally building our brains through our actions and experiences.
That's a great way to think about it. And this neuroplasticity is what allows us to develop expertise in a wide range of domains, from athletics to music to science and everything in between.
So expertise isn't just about having a lot of knowledge. It's about having a brain that's wired for that specific type of knowledge and skill. It's about having a brain that's been trained and optimized for peak performance in a particular domain.
Exactly. And this specialized neural wiring is what allows experts to perceive patterns, make judgments, and solve problems in their domain with speed and accuracy that far surpass those of novices. They see the world through a different lens, one that's been shaped by years of experience and deliberate practice.
It's like they're operating on a completely different cognitive level, isn't it? Their brains are working differently, processing information more efficiently, and making connections that a novice might not even see.
That's an insightful observation. They have a deeper level of understanding that allows them to see beyond the surface details and grasp the fundamental dynamics of their domain. They see the forest and the trees, so to speak.
It's inspiring to think about the incredible potential of the human brain and its ability to achieve such mastery through dedication and effort. It suggests that we all have the capacity to develop expertise in areas we're passionate about if we're willing to put in the time and effort.
I wholeheartedly agree. It's a journey that requires dedication, perseverance, and a willingness to embrace challenges. But the rewards, both personally and professionally, can be immense.
It's a powerful reminder that our brains are not static entities. They're dynamic systems that can be continuously shaped and reshaped by our experiences throughout our lives.
Exactly. And this neural plasticity is at the heart of human learning and adaptation. It's what allows us to keep growing and evolving, pushing the boundaries of what we thought was possible.
It's an incredible gift that we should cherish and cultivate throughout our lives.
couldn't agree more. It's this gift that has allowed us to achieve incredible feats of creativity, innovation, and problem solving throughout human history.
Speaking of problem solving, one of the things that fascinates me about expertise is the ability to not only solve problems, but to anticipate and prevent them in the first place. Experts often seem to have a sixth sense for spotting potential issues before they arise. How do they do that?
That's an excellent question. Research suggests that their ability to anticipate problems stems from their deep understanding of the underlying principles and patterns within their domain. They've internalized the rules of the game, so to speak, and can see how seemingly small details might cascade into larger issues down the line.
So they've developed a mental model of their domain that allows them to simulate different scenarios and predict how events might unfold. They're playing out different possibilities in their minds, like a chess player calculating moves ahead of time.
Exactly. And this mental model is constantly being refined and updated based on their experiences and feedback. They're always learning and adjusting their understanding of how things work.
It's like they're running mental simulations in their heads, testing out different possibilities and identifying potential pitfalls before they happen in the real world.
That's a great way to put it. And this ability to anticipate problems is essential for making effective decisions and for avoiding costly mistakes. It's a valuable skill to cultivate in any field, from business to medicine to even everyday life.
It's about seeing the bigger picture, connecting the dots, and understanding how different elements interact within a system.
Precisely. And this ability to abstract and generalize from experience is a hallmark of true expertise. It's what sets apart those who have a deep understanding of a domain from those who simply have a lot of knowledge or information.
It's like experts have a deeper level of understanding that allows them to see beyond the surface details and grasp the fundamental dynamics of their field. They see the patterns, the connections, the underlying principles that drive how things work.
That's a very insightful observation. And this deeper level of understanding enables them to anticipate problems, make creative connections, and come up with innovative solutions that others might miss.
It's inspiring to think about the power of expertise and the incredible feats of human ingenuity that it has made possible. From groundbreaking scientific discoveries to breathtaking works of art, expertise is at the heart of so much human progress and achievement.
It truly is, and it's a reminder that we all have the potential to develop expertise in areas that ignite our passion and curiosity.
It's a journey that demands dedication, effort, and a willingness to push beyond our comfort zones. But the rewards can be immeasurable, both in terms of personal fulfillment and in the impact we can have on the world.
I couldn't agree more. This journey of developing expertise can be a transformative experience, leading not just to greater knowledge and skill, but also to a deeper understanding of ourselves and our place in the vast tapestry of human knowledge and endeavor.
It's a beautiful reminder that learning is a lifelong pursuit, and that the quest for knowledge can be an enriching and fulfilling adventure.
Indeed, it's an adventure we can all embark on regardless of our backgrounds or starting points. The human mind is a boundless realm of possibilities, and the pursuit of expertise is a testament to our innate drive to learn, grow, and expand our horizons.
Wow, it's amazing to think about the sheer depth and breadth of what we've covered in this deep dive. I mean, we've journeyed from the mysteries of consciousness to the power of prototypes, from the quirks of memory to the incredible heights of expertise. It's been quite a ride.
It really has, and what strikes me is how interconnected all these concepts are. They all contribute to this intricate and ever-evolving tapestry of the human mind.
I love that analogy, a tapestry of knowledge. And like any good tapestry, the more you look at it, the more details and connections you discover. It's a reminder that our understanding of the mind is, always growing and changing.
Exactly, and that sense of ongoing discovery is what makes this field so exciting. There's always a new question to ask, a new perspective to consider, a new layer of complexity to unravel.
Speaking of unraveling complexity, one of the most groundbreaking developments in cognitive science has been the emergence of neuroimaging techniques like fMRI and PK scans. These tools allow us to literally peek inside the brain and see which areas are active during different tasks. What kind of insights have these techniques provided into the nature of consciousness and intelligence?
Oh, neuroimaging has been a game changer. It's like having a window into the brain that allows us to observe its activity in real time. One of the key revelations has been the confirmation that even seemingly simple cognitive tasks involve a complex dance of multiple brain areas working together.
So it's not like there's one designated consciousness center in the brain, but rather a distributed network of regions collaborating to create our subjective
Yeah,
experiences.
that's right. It supports the idea that consciousness is an emergent property arising from the intricate interplay of countless neural processes.
It's like a symphony orchestra, with each instrument playing its part, but all working together to create a unified and harmonious sound.
A perfect analogy. And neuroimaging has also allowed us to investigate the neural underpinnings of intelligence. We can observe which brain regions and networks are associated with different cognitive abilities.
So we can actually see differences in brain activity between individuals with varying levels of cognitive ability.
To a certain extent, yes. Research indicates that individuals with higher intelligence often exhibit more efficient brain networks with enhanced communication and coordination between different brain regions.
It's not just about the size of the brain or the number of neurons, but about the efficiency and connectivity of those neurons.
Exactly. This suggests that intelligence isn't a static attribute, but rather a dynamic property that can be influenced by factors like education experiences and even lifestyle choices.
That's incredibly empowering. It means our brains can continue to grow and evolve throughout our lives if we challenge them and nurture them.
Precisely. It underscores the incredible plasticity of the human brain and its remarkable ability to adapt and change in response to our experiences. And this adaptability isn't limited to intelligence. It extends to our memories, our perceptions, even our very sense of self.
It makes you wonder about the limits of human potential. If our brains are so malleable, what incredible feats might we be capable of achieving if we truly harness this power of neuroplasticity?
That's a profound question. While we haven't fully mapped the boundaries of human potential, the evidence suggests that the brain possesses a vast reservoir of untapped capabilities. As we continue to unravel its mysteries, who knows what extraordinary discoveries await?
It's a thrilling time to be exploring the brain and the mind. With the rapid advancements in neuroscience and cognitive science, we're making remarkable strides in understanding our most complex organ.
Absolutely, and the more we learn, the more we realize how much remains unknown. But that sense of mystery, the pursuit of answers to the most fundamental questions about ourselves, is what drives scientific inquiry and makes this field so captivating.
It's been an incredible journey, this deep dive into the world of consciousness and intelligence. We've traversed a vast landscape of ideas, from the nature of subjective experience to the power of prototypes, from the malleability of memory to the heights of human expertise. It's clear that the human mind is a marvel of complexity and adaptability, capable of incredible feats of creativity, problem-solving, and adaptation.
I couldn't agree more. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm left with a sense of awe and wonder at the vastness of what we've explored. It's a reminder that the quest for understanding the human mind is an ongoing journey, and one that holds immense potential for unlocking even greater insights into what makes us who we are.
To our listeners, I encourage you to keep exploring, to keep asking questions, and to keep marveling at the incredible power and potential of your own minds. Until next time, keep those brains buzzing and those minds expanding.